I may never go to Taco Bell again. So today, my wife and we go to Taco Bell. We got a gift card from her dad, and we go, "Hey, let's go get some Taco Bell." We place an order on the app so that there's no miscommunication. We specify exactly how we want all the different things in the app, and yet today might be Taco Bell's worst performance of all time. I think nearly every item in our order was completely wrong, and it upset me just a little bit. I got like two beefy 5 layers, no sour cream because I have a child's taste palate. And yeah, no, so I also got a chicken chalupa that also had no sour cream, and I added spicy ranch. The one part of my order, which I was extremely grateful for, that came through correctly was large Baja Blast. Baja Blast is the greatest soda that has ever existed. Manzanita Sol is close, but Baja Blast takes the cake. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about me, who I am. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you already know who I am and why I'm doing this. But if you're just one of those that scrounge around Spotify or Apple Podcasts looking for the worst possible podcasts in the world, and you stumbled upon mine, I'll introduce myself. My name is Trey Schneider. I'm a young man, I guess you could say. I feel old, living in northern Arizona with my wife, my 1 year old son, and our dog Carl. And yeah, I currently work for the hospital in the area in their accounting department. And the other thing I'm doing on the side currently is I'm coaching the local seventh grade junior high team. So it's a lot of fun. And I think we'll start with that last little bit with coaching. I have a pretty good team. This is my second year doing it. Um, as is the case, I think when adults are dealing with 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, I want to rip my hair out sometimes, but they're a lot of fun. They're an extremely fun and great group, and they're coming along great. I think sometimes I struggle to remember that any progress is good progress, and they're definitely making a lot of it. Um, the seventh grade coach for one of the nearby schools actually happened to walk into my practice because he was playing in a city league basketball game after the fact, after my practice, and he came up and talked to me, and he was like, "So this is the eighth grade team?" I was like, "No, these are seventh graders." And he was like, "Dude, that is one of the more disciplined teams he'd ever seen." He was telling me, and that was just very nice to hear because that day particularly we had a rough practice, and I was like, "Oh man, I don't know if I can keep doing this," but that was really nice to hear. Um, but this coming week, probably around the time you're hearing this, I'll probably release this on Wednesday, the 10th of January. If you're listening to this and it's not the 10th of January, just know that there was something going on and I didn't release it for some reason. But um, we have a game Thursday, January 11th, against the same school that of the coach I just talked about, and so we'll see how that goes. I'll let you guys know next episode how that game goes, but it should be a good and fun game. Um, yeah, and I this podcast is just one of those creative outlets for me where I have a chance to put something out, get my thoughts out, get whatever it is that I'm feeling out, and be able to present it in a way that I feel proud of, um, and show that to those around me. So that's kind of the purpose of this podcast. I didn't really cover that before, but we'll jump in. My wife and I, on New Year's Day, uh, January 1st, 2024, if those of you might find this podcast 100 years and down the road and wonder what life was like. My wife and I went to WME Theaters in Pine Top and went and watched The Iron Claw. And it was a great movie, phenomenal movie. I loved every minute of it. It was made me cry a couple times. Zach Efron did such a good job. Jeremy Allen White, or Jeremy, I think it's Jeremy Allen White. He uh, he had a great performance. And then that third brother that had the long hair, man, oh man, my wife and I agreed that was one good looking guy. He was gorgeous. But nonetheless, my New Year's resolution is to get a body like Zac Efron's. So I've already reached out. I've got steroids on the way. I'm just really excited to have pecs that my wife can sleep on comfortably. Uh, but no, The Iron Claw, great movie. Sad that sad to see the family turned out the way that it did. Um, sad to see that a parent was willing to put that kind of success and that kind of lifestyle ahead of caring for your kids. And I don't blame him 100%. I think a lot of it had to do with society at the time. However, that form of society really speaks volumes when you look at a family like that and see the kind of results and the different tragedies that struck that family down. It really just shows that, you know, care for your kids, love your kids, you know, look out for their well being. Um, but I'm not here to stand on my soapbox and tell you how to parent because I've only been doing that a year. So I'm not exactly sure how that works. Um, but I'll share another story and we'll see how this goes. So when I was younger, I would say somewhere in the 10 to 12 years old range, um, a cousin of mine, he and I, being very close in age, hung out all the time together, and we had come up with a game uh, called Cowboys and Indians. And I should have been a little bit more forward and progressive thinking, and you know, played Cowboys and Native Americans, as that's the proper way to refer to them. And anyways, we were playing Cowboys and Indians, and the whole point of the game is whoever was playing the part of the Native Americans could run through my grandpa's big field and try to escape, while the Cowboys chased them and tried to bring him back to the barn. And the Cowboys had a couple items that we were like that the Native Americans would have to try to steal and get back to their base. So it was like a little bit of capture the flag and tag and a few other games all kind of mixed into one. And in my grandpa's barn, he stores his hay for his cattle, and if you stand up on the top of all of that hay, there's twine hanging from the rafters. And me being pretty tall, I was actually able to put the twine around my neck and still stand comfortably on top of the bales of hay. And so typically I would have to play the part of the Native American for that reason, as well as I'm one of the least cowboy like people that I know, um, despite having lots of family that is very, very Western in that regard. And so I remember, lots of times I would get caught and they would have to hang me for my crimes. And one time I was playing by myself. My cousins weren't around. It was just me. I was just running through the field doing my own thing. And I was like pretending like I had been caught and I needed to be hung for my crimes. So I climbed up on all the bales of hay. I put the twine around my neck and tragedy struck. Now you're thinking I slipped and the twine got around my neck. No. A lady happened to be driving by and she could see into the barn to where I was standing, but you couldn't see that I was standing on hay. So it just looked like there was a little, 12, 11-year-old boy hanging from twine in this barn in Hicktown, America. And she ran off the road, came flying back in her car. In the meantime, I realized what had just happened, knew that I was going to be in trouble, and I took off. I was out of there. Took the twine off my neck, jumped down, and there's a little stream that runs through my grandpa's field. I wasn't wearing any swim clothes. It was like later in August, so it was slightly chilly, but I went and dove into the creek, as we called it, to try to avoid having to deal with the consequences of my actions. And I mean, within minutes, like with 5 minutes or less, even we had ambulance, fire trucks, police, and my mom and my family at the time, we lived right next door to this barn, and so they're banging on my family's door, and my mom comes out, and they're like, "We saw this little boy hanging up there. Now he's gone. What happened?" So I had to go and explain myself, but needless to say, I just shouldn't have been playing that game in the first place. Um, doesn't really There was really no winning for the Native Americans in that game. So perhaps my cousins and I need to go back and revisit that game and maybe come up with a new name for it. But yeah, so that's just a couple stories about me. Hopefully, you got a kick out of them, like my wife did. That's why I shared those stories. But feel free to send in anything you'd like me to discuss, go over. Um, I'm going to try to bring a few more topics. But as far as the first episode goes, I just kind of wanted to get my feet wet again into podcasting and put something out. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.